News tonight, a News Channel 11 investigation reveals some employees at the Greene Valley Developmental Center were not doing what they were supposed to do while on the clock.
And we discovered workers sleeping, workers on drugs, workers who were drunk while on the job, and we discovered employees giving out wrong medications, stealing, forgetting about patients, even abusing some of our most vulnerable neighbors. In the worst of those cases, Nate Morabito uncovered a complete lack of justice. Now, after 5 months of exhaustive investigation, the district attorney has opened 2 criminal investigations in response to Nate's reporting.
It's hard to believe we've discovered 250 documented cases of abuse, neglect, and exploitation at Greene Valley since 2002. In most of those cases, the state's internal investigators never alerted police, a practice the DA wants changed for abuse and neglect cases in the future. Even after one of the rare times they did call police, we discovered the chief failed to investigate. At just 60 pounds with the brain of a child, you can legitimately count Denise Bragdon among the most fragile members of society.
They told my parents she probably wouldn't live past 5 years old.
Now 62, she wouldn't be here without Greene Valley Developmental Center.
In a different way, the employees of Greene Valley love my sister as much as I love her as a brother.
During her 41 years there, Brian Bragdon says his sister's caretakers never let her down.
Trusted them entirely. Never had any doubt or any concerns with any of her care over the years.
Unfortunately, we discovered some of the other residents at Greene Valley weren't as lucky. For years, the details of dozens of abuse, neglect, and exploitation internal investigations remained in the dark, hidden from the outside world. Of the more than 90 documented cases since 2009, our investigation found most started and ended inside Greene Valley. Like this 2013 case, when an employee failed to secure a patient, a man who eventually died after a fall.
That was a very horrible situation that happened, and we wanted to make sure that it never happened again.
The Department of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities prides itself on its nationally recognized Protection from Harm program. It requires corrective action in every case and terminations or resignations in the worst cases.
You can either ignore them or you can do something about them, and that is one of the things that we have been very stringent in doing.
But after those internal investigations, the consequences only went so far. Some argue not far enough. According to data we reviewed, 20 employees at Greene Valley lost their jobs in the last 6 years. But we found out most of the time, despite DIDD's commitment on paper to work with local law enforcement, those workers never talked to police. And actions that might appear criminal never received even a quick glance by law enforcement.
Staff pushed a man down the hall. Staff member hit a woman on the head after she stumbled, slapped a woman on her head, pushed a woman into a chair and said she hated her. I think people are going to say, why didn't DIDD call the police?
So when we do suspect criminal activity, we do contact local law enforcement.
Of 12 substantiated abuse cases since 2009, 9 of them physical abuse, DIDD only reached out to law enforcement twice. Cases where there were documented injuries.
I just don't understand why you wouldn't file a police report if someone is physically abused and it's a confirmed internal investigation.
When we have things happen, we do notify police.
While the Tusculum Police Department, an agency made up of just 2 full-time officers, responded to both cases, they never resulted in criminal charges. After an employee reportedly slapped a resident in the face with this shoe in 2014, leaving a red mark, police opened an investigation. The woman resigned, never charged with a crime. And then there's this case, also from late 2014.
It's on me. That was on me.
Involving the reported shoving, dragging, and slapping of a woman, leaving a mark on her arm. Even more disturbing than the vivid details of this report
Oh, it's terrible.
is the fact the police chief says he forgot to investigate the heartbreaking allegations.
That's all my fault.
A woman was shoved against the wall, dragged by her feet down the hall, slapped on the rear end, a woman with intellectual disabilities, and you forgot to investigate it?
I don't ever remember having a conversation to that extent. So maybe it got started but wasn't explained that way.
A department log shows the chief responded to the abuse call and started a report, but never followed up.
It went through the cracks.
Have you ever had another case like that before?
No. No. That's what bothers me the most. That's part of our job, is to watch after those people that can't take care of themselves.
And in this instance, you failed.
I did fail. absolutely.
If the people over there, if that poor victim could even understand you, what would you say to her?
Oh, I definitely would apologize to her. I apologize to her family.
In your mind, don't you think there's an injustice here?
To the extent that the appropriate people did not get to look at these things at a contemporaneous time, yes.
District Attorney Dan Armstrong says not only does the lack of investigation in that case bother him,
There's a problem that needs to be fixed.
so does the fact that he can't find proof of a single case of abuse that ever made it to his office.
There are several cases that were not reported to law enforcement that should have been,
Yes,
in your mind.
yes. I'd like to have known about all of those. Everybody's entitled to be treated with respect, and when people are not, especially people who are vulnerable, we want to look into it.
He feels the same way for the neglect case where the man died. Our findings prompted his office to review a stack of recent Greene Valley cases and open 2 criminal investigations.
I think there could be charges. I just have to wait and see what the investigation tells us.
The 2 cases originally referred to Tusculum police in 2014.
If they can follow up on it and do that, then I'm happy that their victims are going to get some justice.
At the least, officials tell us our investigation prompted improved communication between these 3 agencies.
I don't know of anything negative that ever occurred with my sister.
Just the fact that you can sit here after 41 years and say that you have no concerns, that must be a relief to you, especially when I've told you some of the things that have happened there.
Correct. Maybe I'm fortunate, maybe I'm blessed.
Families find a sad irony in all of this. Just like Denise Bragdon, every other person who once called Greene Valley home will eventually move away to group homes, a move forced upon her and other residents because Tennessee will now close the last of its intellectual centers, a move forced on the state because of a civil suit settlement to end a 20-year-old lawsuit alleging abuse at state-run institutions.
From now on, the DA wants DIDD to call police and his office every time there's a substantiated case of neglect or abuse at Greene Valley. He says that doesn't mean any of them will be criminal, but he just wants trained law enforcement to make that decision, not internal investigators. A DIDD spokesperson told me since safety is the agency's #1 priority, it is happy to honor that request. Josh?
I understand just last week you found out some new information about the reporting process here.
Yeah, so DIDD tells me some undisclosed law enforcement agencies in parts of Middle and East Tennessee have previously scolded DIDD for calling them too often for, quote, minor cases. A spokesperson says that could have influenced why investigators never called police for those 7 abuse cases, substantiated abuse cases, where there were no reported injuries.
Nate Morbido. Nate, thank you for your work. And Nate found plenty of other cases like the employee who left a woman on the toilet for an hour and a half, workers who left patients in a van so they could stop by a garage sale, and the multiple employees who fell asleep or were under the influence while at work. You can find the cases on our website, WJHL.com.